Hi, and welcome back to Books of the Book. And I want to read the verse that we read just before we went to the break. We'll read it again and talk about it a bit. It's 1 Thessalonians 4:14, in which Paul says, "For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, so also through Jesus, God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep through Jesus."
Okay, the through Jesus only happens once, but the reason I put it in twice is because in Greek the word order isn't critical, you see. And so does it mean, do they fall asleep through Jesus, or does God bring them with him through Jesus? Is Jesus the agent with which he brings them, you see? So that's the issue there, and one can debate back and forth. So there's a couple of challenges here. What is this through Jesus? That's unusual. He talks about in Jesus, in Christ quite frequently, but through Jesus, what's that all about? And the other one says God will bring them with him. And some people say, is he bringing them from heaven? You know, if they died, gone to heaven, God's bringing them to meet those who are being taken up from the earth. What is going on there? Well, I think when you look at the whole passage, as you just read it, the model for the redeemed is Jesus' death and resurrection. Jesus dies, he's buried, he's raised, and then he ascends to heaven. You see, likewise, it says, the believers who have died will be raised and then ascend up to heaven. In verse 16 and 17, that ascension takes place. So we are following the pattern. It's always upward in this text. It's never downward. So God bringing with him means bringing out of the ground. He will bring them up and bring them with Jesus up into heaven. So I think, and look at the logic of this. The Thessalonians are grieving. If their loved ones are in heaven, you know, why doesn't Paul just tell them? You see, it would be so easy to solve the problem. If that's where they were, he could just say so. But if they're not already there, then he tells them the way it is here. So he's pointing not to life after death, he's pointing to the second coming as the place where life comes back to those who have died.
Such a great point. You know, when I was doing some of my graduate work, I was taking some courses from a university that is not Adventist, and I was the only Adventist in the classes with all of these other pastors in the area and different denominations represented. And it was always interesting, you know, I always got asked, as the one Adventist in the group, they'd always say, "John, you know, what do Adventists believe about this? You know, what do Adventists believe about that?" And, you know, whether it's about death or different things, the resurrection. And so I'd always just tell them, well, you know, this is what we believe, and share with them our belief of what we've been talking about here, and the resurrection and the great hope, and about what happens when people die. And it was really interesting because we took a break in the class, and as I was walking down one of the hallways, the professor of the class, who's not Adventist, came up alongside him. We were walking along. He says, "You know, John," he says, "it's kind of interesting. I guess I'm realizing I'm becoming more Adventist than I thought I was." You know, because this is such a wonderful doctrine, you know, that we have Adventists really teach and uphold, that gives so much hope and comfort as well.
Well, I think this perspective on this text is becoming more and more common among scholars of all faiths, different faiths, recognizing that the bodily resurrection is something that happens at the second coming. It isn't something that happens the moment a person dies. And there's beauty in that. You know, some people say, well, I want them to be in heaven and so on. But yeah, they're not thinking anything.
Right.
They're sleeping. To them, the passage of time is nothing, you see. But the beautiful thing is everybody comes up together. The community's preserved, you see. It's not like we're all going up there one at a time. Oh, I'm missing all my family, you know. I'm up here in heaven, but I'm missing everything. No. We all go up together. And for Paul, this togetherness, it was the breaking up of the community that upset them so much. And it's the togetherness of the community that the resurrection underlines. Coming back to the through Jesus thing, maybe it's just another way of saying in Jesus. They died in Christ But I think more likely Jesus is the agent who brings them back. He comes to earth and he brings them back with him. So I think that's what it's about. But it's a challenging text. Just the way that Paul chose to phrase it is a bit of a puzzle to us. We have to keep in mind these letters are like a one-way phone conversation. You hear somebody talking on the phone, you don't know what's happening on the other side. Sometimes you're not quite sure what's going on.
That's a good way of putting
I think that's what happens here.
Yeah.
Why don't you read verses 15 and 16 for us?
Yeah, let's look at that. Paul says, "For we say this to you by word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who remain until the coming of the Lord, will not precede those who have fallen asleep. Because the Lord himself will come down from heaven with the voice of an archangel, with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first."
So here we see the second coming itself being described. This is one of the great second coming texts in the entire Bible. And one of the things that strikes me right away is this is a very noisy text. You can imagine the trumpet of God. I mean, hold your ears. This is really going to get your attention.
I have 2 kids playing trumpet at home, so that's just 2.
Well, God's trumpet is going to blow you away.
Yeah.
You see? And then in addition to the trumpet call of God, you have the voice of the archangel. You know, and he must be a really big guy.
Yeah.
You see? And so you have this loudness, this visibleness. Some dear people, they see this as a secret rapture somehow, that this is undetectable. That's not what the text is saying.
No.
The text is talking about a very visible event, a very public event. This is loud and noisy and in your face kind of experience here rather than a secret. Paul's answer to the whole issue here, the Thessalonians are grieving, and he says, look, he says, this is the way God's going to fix this problem. First of all, the dead in Christ will rise. Now notice he says first. He says, those who are alive aren't going to precede those who have died. Somehow they were concerned that those who had died would be disadvantaged at the second coming. Paul says, no way. Here's what's going to happen. When Jesus comes, you who are alive are going to be there, but first thing, he's going to raise up the dead. And when he raises up the dead, you're all going to be together right there on the earth. Next thing that happens is they ascend up to meet him in the air. So the second thing that happens, going up together.
Yeah.
So we will be together. And there's several together words in this passage that shows that when they rise up to meet Jesus, they'll be rising up together. Now, one thing Paul doesn't say here, he doesn't say where they go after they meet. Some Christians believe that they meet Jesus in the air and then they come back to earth and Jesus reigns here on the earth. We believe, as Seventh-day Adventists, that when we rise up to meet Jesus in the air, so we can continue on up. And in this passage, it's always up. The whole movement of this passage is up. Jesus, he dies, he rises, he ascends to heaven. And then the believers, they rise and they ascend up into the air to meet Jesus there. Do they go on up to heaven or do they come back to earth? He doesn't say. And John, can you help us with that?
Well, you know, one of the things that I like to do as a pastor when I'm studying with people or people have questions about this is I love to take 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 that we're looking at and 1 Corinthians 15 and Revelation 20. You take those 3 chapters and I ask people just to take a regular blank sheet of paper and just make a timeline of what those 3 chapters tell you, because those 3 chapters tell you exactly, you know, what takes place when Christ comes and the resurrection happens. And I love how you really brought out together. You know, together we go with Christ, and it tells the whole timeline of that millennium period, and then when Christ comes back with His people and makes the earth new. You know, we could get into more details about that, but I would encourage you, if you haven't done that, just take those 3 chapters. This chapter, 1 Thessalonians 4, 1 Corinthians 15, and Revelation chapter 20. and just make a timeline there with Christ's coming and what happens there, and it'll explain everything all the way until Christ comes back again with his people to make the earth new. And I think you'll find that a really fulfilling exercise, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So the millennium then begins right after Jesus coming.
Right.
And then the question still becomes, during the millennium, will we be here on earth or will we be up in heaven?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. We'll settle that, I think, in a little bit.
Right.
But why don't we take a look at 1 Thessalonians 4 again? And I'm going to read this time verses 16 through 18. It says, "Because the Lord himself will come down from heaven with the voice of an archangel and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive, who remain, will be carried up together with them," not separately, not at different times, "together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will always be with the Lord. For this reason, therefore, encourage one another with these words." Now, the fascinating thing is, in the Greek, that's exactly what that letter you read had earlier. They were saying, well, there's nothing you can do about these things. That's the way it is. People are dead, they're gone, So comfort one another with these things. And that's such a shallow comfort, isn't it? But here, Paul is saying, you comfort one another because you know that the hope is real. You know it's going to happen. And from their perspective, when my mom died, it dawned on me, from her perspective, Jesus had already come. I don't need to grieve for her because when she's asleep, the passage of time is just like zero. The next thing she knows, Jesus is coming and she's back together with us. So we're waiting, but in her consciousness, there will be no waiting because there is no passage of time in the sleep of death. Now, there's one more text I think that's really significant here. And that is John 14, because that's the only place in the Bible that I know of that clearly tells us exactly what happens at that time. Would you like to read that for us?
Sure, I'd love to. Jesus says, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also."
You see, here's the thing. Jesus doesn't say, I go to prepare a place for you, and I come. You see, he doesn't say, I will come again so that I can be with you. So that where you are, I can be also. He says, no, I'm going to bring you so that where I am, you can be also. Jesus is in heaven, and he brings them up there with him. John 14 is clear. 1 Thessalonians 4 by itself is not clear. But John 14 is very clear. So here's the bottom line. If Paul wants to comfort the Thessalonians, if the Thessalonians, if they're dead or in heaven, then why are they grieving? And if they don't know that the dead are in heaven, why doesn't Paul tell them? You see, clearly that idea is not in Paul's mind, and he puts their hope on the second coming of Jesus and the resurrection.
Yeah. Well, this is just phenomenal knowledge that the Spirit gave Paul to speak to the hearts of people today and even in Thessalonica. And so we can be so grateful for the knowledge that God has given to us through his word here in 1 Thessalonians, that we can have hope to know that Jesus is coming again. And if we've lost loved ones, we will be with them again by his grace. Until next time, we'll see you. God bless.